before you can ever truly fight alongside someone, let alone someone as complicated as a narcissist, you must understand the battlefield. Not the one outside with swords or strategies, but the one within, the human heart. And few hearts are more complex than that of a narcissist. We often think of them as loud, proud, and utterly self-absorbed. And yes, on the surface, they may seem bulletproof in their confidence. But dig just beneath that surface, and what you'll often find is not strength, but fear. A fear of being ordinary, a fear of being unloved unless they're admired, a fear of losing control. You see, fighting alongside a narcissist is not the same as fighting against one. That's the first mistake many make. We treat them like the enemy. We brace ourselves for battle, ready to defend our worth, our sanity, our voice. And sometimes, yes, boundaries are necessary, strong ones. But when the mission is bigger than the people involved, and you find yourself shoulder to shoulder with a narcissist instead of face to face, you need a new kind of armor. Not armor made of pride or ego, but of wisdom, patience, and perspective. They thrive in environments where admiration flows freely, where applause is constant, and where the mirror always reflects greatness. But the truth is, deep down, they are starving for something more lasting than applause. They are starving for peace, for meaning, for rest. And in that, they're not so different from you or me. What sets them apart is how they try to fill the void. Where you might seek connection, they seek control. Where you might want to serve, they want to be seen. But make no mistake, there is still a person behind the performance. And when you begin to understand that, when you begin to see through the lens of truth instead of resentment, something shifts. Now, that doesn't mean you excuse the manipulation or accept the toxic cycles. It means you stop expecting them to be what they're not, and instead start learning how to navigate who they are. It means preparing for sudden changes in tone, shifting expectations, and moments where your loyalty will be tested not just by them, but by the voice inside you that asks, is this worth it? You learn to expect contradiction. You learn to recognize when their charm is a tool, not a gift. You learn to listen closely, not just to what they say, but what they leave out. And most importantly, you learn to remain centered in your own truth while standing in the same room with theirs. It's not about being passive. It's about being anchored. Because if you don't understand the terrain, you will get swept up in the chaos. And you'll start to believe that love must always be earned, that worth must always be proven, that peace only comes after applause. But that's not the way we were designed. We were made for more. We were made to walk with grace even when others run with pride. We were made to speak with clarity even when others manipulate with charm. We were made to fight not with bitterness, but with a higher kind of strength. So before you fight alongside a narcissist, before you try to collaborate, to lead, to build anything lasting, you must pause. Look around. Understand the lay of the land. Don't charge in swinging. Take a breath. See the soul behind the struggle. And remember this, victory doesn't always look like conquest. Sometimes it looks like compassion paired with courage. Sometimes it's knowing who you are so deeply that no one else's storm can shake you. That is how you win. That is how you fight, not just with strength, but with sight. Now, once you understand the battlefield, once you've seen the heart beneath the armor, it's time to look inward. Because the next fight, the harder fight, isn't with the narcissist beside you. It's with your own ego. Yes, that quiet part of you that wants to be right, that wants to be recognized, that wants just as much as they do sometimes to be seen. And let me tell you, if you bring your ego into that fire, it won't just be the narcissist who burns you. It'll be your own pride, your own need to prove something. That's why if you're going to walk this path, if you're going to build something meaningful in the presence of someone who always needs the spotlight, you must make a powerful decision to ditch the ego but keep the strategy. Now I know that may sound like weakness, like surrender, but it's not. It's the highest form of strength, because ego reacts, strategy responds. Ego demands, strategy decides. And if you're working alongside someone whose identity depends on constant validation, your ego will always be provoked. They'll take credit for your work. They'll interrupt your ideas. They'll twist stories to suit their image. And your pride will scream for justice. You'll want to call them out, correct them, level the field. But what would that accomplish? You might win a moment, but lose the mission. This is where wisdom must rise. Wisdom says, you don't have to match their volume to speak with power. Wisdom reminds you that applause is fleeting, but fruit, real fruit, lasts. Let your work speak. Let your integrity echo louder than their ego ever could. Because the truth is, you are not in competition with them. You are not on the same journey. They may be chasing admiration, but you chasing impact. They may be building their image, but you are building something that can outlast both of you. And yes, there will be times it hurts. Times when you're overlooked, underestimated, even disrespected. But don't let that pull you off course. Don't let someone else's insecurity rob you of your clarity. You don't need to be louder to be stronger. You just need to be faithful. You just need to know why you're here and what you're called to do. Because when you know that, when your mission becomes more important than your ego, you become unstoppable. Now let me be clear. This doesn't mean you become a doormat. This doesn't mean you let manipulation run unchecked. But there's a difference between being silent and being strategic. You learn how to speak in ways they can hear. You pick your battles. You stop trying to teach someone a lesson they're not ready to learn. And instead, you invest that energy into progress, into peace, into purpose. You don't have to win every argument. You don't have to be the hero of the story. Sometimes you just have to be the steady hand on the wheel, the quiet force that keeps things moving when everything around you is noise. That's the power of humility. It doesn't shrink you, it strengthens you. It gives you the space to see the long game, to keep the mission in sight even when others are chasing mirrors. And in the end, the fruit will speak, the results will speak, the lives changed, the truth lived out. That will speak louder than any self-promotion ever could. Because when the dust settles and the stories fade, what remains is not who got the credit, but who made a difference. So walk forward, not needing to shine, but choosing to serve. Lay down the need to be right and pick up the call to be wise. For the one who can lead without needing the spotlight is the one who can truly light the way. Now, once you've set your ego aside and chosen to walk the path of wisdom, the next step becomes clear. How do you move forward with someone whose very nature demands the spotlight? How do you work beside a person who constantly craves recognition, yet still carries a spark of brilliance that could help move the mission forward? The answer, my friends, is not in silencing them, not in trying to humble them by force, but in learning how to leverage their strengths without feeding their flames. Because make no mistake, narcissists, for all their faults, often carry gifts. They can be charismatic, persuasive, relentless in their ambition. They chase goals with a kind of fever that can break barriers, stir action, and rally people in ways few others can. And if you've ever seen one in full stride, you know what I mean. They can light up a room, lead a charge, inspire action, sometimes even for good. But just like fire, that kind of drive must be handled with care. Fire can warm, but it can also burn. It can illuminate a path, but it can also consume everything in its reach. So we must learn to steward that fire, to use the heat without fueling the destruction. That's where discernment comes in. See, there's a temptation to either resist them entirely or fall into flattery to keep the peace. But both of those paths miss the mark. One leads to constant friction, the other to silent resentment. What we must do is different. We must become wise in how we position them, wise in what we entrust to them. Give them roles where their strengths shine, front-facing responsibilities, bold pitches, high-stakes moments where their need to impress actually aligns with the greater good. Give them the microphone when the room needs energy. Let them run when the goal is speed. But be sure the foundation is steady before they take off. At the same time, don't pour gasoline on their ego. Don't get caught in the trap of excessive praise just to keep the peace. Instead, affirm the outcome, not the ego. Celebrate what's effective, not what's flashy. Say, this helped move us forward, rather than, you're the only one who could have done it. Do you see the difference? One speaks to progress, the other feeds pride. And our goal is not to inflate their self-worth, it's to channel their energy for something higher than themselves. You'll need boundaries, clear ones. Not boundaries that punish, but ones that guide. Because a narcissist without limits will run wild. But a narcissist with clear lanes can sometimes become an unlikely asset. When they know where the guardrails are, when they understand what they're responsible for and what they're not, they may push, but they'll also perform. And let me tell you something else. Sometimes, when they see that you won't worship them, but you also won't war with them, something begins to change. Maybe not overnight, maybe not loudly, but respect grows. Not the kind that's demanded or dramatic, but quiet, steady respect. The kind that sees your strength isn't in control, but in calm. The kind that sees you're not trying to beat them, but to build something that lasts. This is not a path for the faint of heart. It takes patience, it takes wisdom, but it also takes hope. Hope that even the most self-absorbed soul still holds a spark of purpose. And maybe, just maybe, if you can help them aim that fire in the right direction, something good can come from it. Not because you fueled their pride, but because you guided their passion. So go forward with eyes wide open. See the gift, see the danger, and choose to walk with courage. Because when you learn to harness their fire without feeding the flame, you become more than a co-worker or a companion. You become a steward of something far greater than either of you could build alone. If we're going to walk this narrow road, if we're going to truly fight alongside someone whose identity depends on the echo of applause, then we must learn a skill as delicate as it is powerful. We must master the art of tactical praise. Now that word, praise, it carries weight. Some of us grew up hearing it used carelessly, tossed around to appease or manipulate. Others never heard it at all, starved for affirmation in a world that always demanded more. But here, in this moment, we're not talking about flattery. We're not talking about puffing someone up just to keep the peace. We're talking about something far more intentional. We're talking about learning how to speak truth in a way that directs the heart, not just strokes the ego. Because the truth is, the narcissist in your life isn't just hungry for attention, they're hungry for worth. And the tragedy is, they often confuse one for the other. They chase admiration because they've forgotten what it means to be valued without performing. So they keep performing, they keep dazzling, they keep reaching for the next moment of applause like a man chasing water in a desert. And this is where you come in. You don't control them, you may not even be able to change them. But what you can do is influence the atmosphere. You can speak in a way that redirects their gaze, that praises what is right and not what is loud. You see, when you praise them for who they are in fleeting moments of humility, when you call out the moments they choose integrity, when you recognize not just the outcome but the effort behind the scenes, they may not say it, but they notice. You're planting seeds, but you have to be wise. Narcissists are sharp. They know the difference between authentic affirmation and empty flattery. If you give praise too freely, it loses its weight. If you praise the wrong things, the manipulation, the showmanship, the vanity, you're not helping them grow. You're just feeding the very fire you're trying to contain. But when you offer praise with precision, with timing, with purpose, it becomes something different. It becomes a tool, a way to align them little by little with a deeper mission. Praise the teamwork, not just the solo act. Praise the progress, not just the performance. Say, that decision brought peace, or your preparation made this moment possible. Speak in a way that turns their focus outward, not inward. Help them see that their true strength isn't in being admired, it's in making others stronger too. And let me tell you, sometimes that kind of praise becomes a mirror that shows them a version of themselves they didn't even know existed, a version that can be generous, self-aware, even kind, and maybe for a moment they see that reflection and want to become it, not for applause, but for peace. That's not manipulation, that's ministry. That's love with wisdom, truth with grace. Now, will it always land? No. There will be times they deflect it, times they twist it, times they want more, louder, faster. And in those moments, you must stay anchored. Don't withdraw. Don't retaliate. Just stay steady. Keep speaking truth. Keep offering praise that builds rather than inflates. Because over time, consistency speaks louder than charisma. We are not called to manipulate people. We are called to love them. And love, when it is wise, knows when to speak and when to stay silent. It knows how to affirm what is good without condoning what is broken. It knows how to speak life, not just for comfort, but for calling. So speak with purpose, encourage with clarity, and never underestimate the quiet power of a well-placed word. Because in a world full of noise and self-promotion, the voice that speaks with both truth and love can still move mountain. If you've walked this far, if you've learned to set your ego aside, to guide rather than provoke, to praise with wisdom and not with flattery, then you're already walking a higher road. But hear me now. There's one more step we must take. One that might be the difference between surviving and thriving in the presence of a narcissist. You must create alliances, not rivalries. It's a simple truth, but one we forget so easily. When someone close to us demands attention, dominates conversation, steals credit, or bends truth to suit their image, our natural response is to isolate, to pull back, to say, if that's the game they're playing, I'll keep my distance. Or worse, we start to compete. We start to mimic their pride, meet their energy with our own. We begin to see others not as fellow travelers, but as obstacles in a contest we never meant to enter. That's the trap. That's the silent war that divides teams, fractures families, and weakens missions. But friend, we were never called to be lone warriors. We were made for community. We were made to link arms. When you're walking alongside a narcissist, you may feel alone, but you're not the only one feeling it. Others see it too. Others sense the tension, the imbalance, the subtle manipulations that twist the atmosphere. And while some might stay silent, others are watching, wondering, is there anyone here who still walks with integrity? That's your moment. That's your opportunity, not to isolate, not to outshine, but to connect. Find the quiet ones, the steady hands, the clear thinkers, the truth tellers. Find the ones who don't need to be loud to be strong. Build trust in quiet conversations, in small acts of kindness, in showing up consistently when it matters most. These are your allies. And let me be clear, alliances are not cliques. They are not backroom meetings to complain or tear down. No, alliances built on gossip crumble just as quickly as the ego that inspired them. But alliances built on shared purpose, on mutual respect, on truth spoken in love, those are the alliances that last. Those are the bonds that can hold a team together when pressure rises and tempers flare. You'll need these people, not because you're weak, but because wisdom thrives in counsel. Because navigating the emotional maze of a narcissist is not a solo mission. Sometimes you'll need someone to say, no, you're not crazy, that really did just happen. Sometimes you'll need someone to help you laugh, to remind you that you're still grounded, still whole, still you. And sometimes you'll be that person for them. Don't let competition steal what community could restore. You don't have to fight fire with fire. You can fight it with unity. And unity doesn't always mean agreement. It means alignment. It means standing side by side even when things are tense. It means being the calm in the room when the narcissist brings the storm. It means being the anchor others can trust even when the current tries to pull them under. And here's the beautiful part. When you build these quiet alliances, when you become a source of steadiness and clarity, it changes the whole atmosphere. The narcissist may still dominate the spotlight, but they can't dominate the spirit of the room, because there's a strength in unity that even ego cannot overshadow. You were never meant to walk alone, and you don't have to. Look around, build bridges, strengthen hearts, speak the truth with love, and choose connection over comparison every single time. Because in the end, we don't rise by rivalry, we rise by lifting each other. And when we stand together, not even the strongest ego can shake what we've built. There comes a time in every battle, not the kind fought with fists or fury, but the quiet ones fought in boardrooms, in relationships, in the depths of your soul, when you must make a choice. Not a dramatic choice, not one shouted from rooftops, but a sacred one. You must decide whether to keep walking alongside someone or to walk away. Or, just as powerfully, you must learn the wisdom of winning without needing the credit. Sometimes the highest victory is letting them believe it was their idea all along. Now, I know that might not sit well at first. It feels like compromise. It feels like surrender. But hear me. There is a vast difference between surrendering the spotlight and surrendering your values. Letting someone else believe they carried the day when you've been quietly steering the ship is not weakness. It is strategy rooted in humility. It's understanding the mission is more important than your name being etched into the stone. And if you're dealing with a narcissist, that might be the only way forward. There are moments when your strength will not be seen, but it will be felt. When your influence will not be acknowledged, but it will guide the outcome. And that must be enough. Because if you measure success by recognition, you'll always be a prisoner to someone else's approval. But if you measure it by impact, by peace kept, by progress made, by lives touched, you will always find purpose, even in the shadow. That being said, there is another side to this truth. There are moments, clear, holy moments, when you must walk away, when no amount of wisdom or grace or careful strategy can carry the relationship forward, when the narcissism no longer just destroys, it destroys. And if that time comes, you do not walk in bitterness, you walk in clarity. You do not walk to punish, you walk to protect. You do not slam the door. You simply close it with peace in your hands and conviction in your heart. Knowing when to walk is not about quitting, it's about honoring what you've built within yourself. It's recognizing when your energy is being drained more than it's being used for good. When your spirit is being silenced more than it's being stirred. And it's about trusting that there are some battles you are not called to fight forever. But in all the other moments, the ones where you stay, where you endure, where you press on, you will find that learning how to win without needing the recognition becomes a kind of spiritual discipline. Because while they seek applause, you seek outcomes. While they crave credit, you cultivate peace. And when the plan works, when the team succeeds, when the vision is realized, let them celebrate. Let them take the mic. Let them revel in the applause. Because deep down, you'll know who helped get it there. And the people who matter most, they'll know too. There is a quiet dignity in doing good work and not needing to shout about it. There is a sacred strength in walking through fire, not to prove your worth, but because you carry a purpose greater than your pride. And if you can walk that road, if you can learn when to lean in and when to let go, when to speak up and when to step back, then no narcissist can hold you hostage. No performance can pull you off purpose. You are not defined by how much credit you get. You are defined by how deeply you love, how wisely you lead, and how faithfully you walk the path that's been set before you. So stay rooted. Stay kind, and whether you walk away or walk quietly beside them, know this: sometimes the greatest victory is not in being seen, but in being true. So now we've walked this path together, step by step, truth by truth, from understanding the battlefield to surrendering the ego, from leveraging strengths without feeding the fire to offering praise with purpose, from building alliances instead of rivalries to knowing when to walk or when to let them think they won. It's not a straight road, and it surely isn't an easy one, but it is a road worth taking for the sake of peace, for the sake of purpose, for the sake of becoming who we were always meant to be. You see, learning to fight alongside a narcissist isn't really about them. It's about you. It's about who you become in the process. It's about learning to lead without needing the spotlight, about growing strong without growing hard. It's about knowing that grace is not weakness and silence isn't surrender. That sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stay steady when chaos swirls around you. That sometimes the greatest victories come not with applause, but with quiet clarity. You may never change them. You may never hear the apology you deserve. You may never get the recognition you've earned, but you will walk in integrity. You will plant seeds of truth. You will model a strength that doesn't shout, but stands firm. And in a world obsessed with image and noise, that kind of strength is a light that cuts through the fog, a light that reminds others there is still another way. So hold your ground, guard your peace, keep your heart tender and your spirit sharp. And when the world tells you to fight fire with fire, choose instead to fight with wisdom, with patience, and with purpose. Because when you do, when you live and lead with that kind of courage, there is no narcissist, no ego, no storm that can steal the victory that's already growing inside of you. Keep walking, keep building, and never forget, the greatest battles are not won by force.